I came home exhausted, my shoulders heavy after a long day at work. All I wanted was to take off my shoes and hear my daughter Amber's happy laugh. But as I parked the car, something felt wrong. Under the dim streetlight, I saw a small figure sitting on the sidewalk in front of our house. My heart pounded when I realized it was Amber. Without thinking, I ran to her, afraid of what had happened. My name is Sophia Morgan, I'm 32 years old, and that night, I found my daughter crying outside. Her face was wet with tears, and she hugged herself tightly. What happened, sweetheart? Are you hurt? I asked, panicked, searching for injuries. She shook her head, but I could see pain in her eyes, a different kind of pain. It took her a moment before she finally spoke, and when she did, her words broke me. He kicked me out, Mom, she whispered. He said I don't belong here. I felt like I couldn't breathe. Who, your dad? I asked, my voice shaking. She nodded, tears spilling over. He brought Aunt Isabella inside, she sobbed. They were on your bed. I froze, the world spun. My husband, Adam, and Isabella, my own sister. They had betrayed me. A cold, sharp rage rose inside me. I swallowed the pain, replacing it with something stronger. I held Amber close and made a silent promise, this isn't over. I took her inside, but the house no longer felt like home. Something had been stolen from me, and there was only one thing left to do. Get justice. That night, after Amber fell asleep, I sat at the kitchen table, my hands shaking. I wasn't just tired, I was determined. In the early morning, I opened my laptop and started digging through Adam's finances. He had always been careless with money, relying on me to handle it. Now, his mistakes would be my weapon. It didn't take long to find them. Secret transfers, hidden accounts, debt he never told me about. But the worst part? He had spent money on Isabella. Expensive clothes, fancy dinners, trips I never knew about. The thought of them together made me sick, but I couldn't let anger control me. Amber needed me. During the day, I stayed close to her, we cooked together, watched movies, and laughed. I wanted her to feel safe. At night, when she was asleep, I planned. I hired a lawyer I could trust. He didn't ask questions, but he understood this was serious. Adam and Isabella thought they had won. They had no idea what was coming. This time, I was in control. I checked every document carefully. Every legal step was planned out. There would be no mistakes. But I didn't stop there. I secretly put an app on Adam's phone to track his messages and calls. Isabella made it even easier for me. She posted everything online, showing off gifts from Adam. Every detail I found was another piece of my plan. No second guessing. Adam and Isabella had destroyed everything I built. But now, I would rebuild it, my way. This wasn't just about getting revenge. It was about taking back my life. It was about showing Amber that no one could break us. I knew the moment would come when I had to face Adam. And when it did, I would be ready. As I finished gathering the evidence, I shut my laptop and looked outside. The night was dark, but I knew it wouldn't last forever. Morning would come. And with it, the end of Adam and Isabella. To anyone else, the night seemed normal. But to me, every step felt heavy. I walked through the house with the divorce papers in my bag. These papers weren't just ending a marriage. They were ending years of lies and betrayal. I felt calm, focused. I had prepared for this. Rehearsed every word, every move. It was time. Adam sat on the couch, feet up, glued to his phone, probably texting Isabella. The thought made me sick. But I didn't let it show. He barely looked at me when I walked in. Even now, he thought I wasn't worth his attention. I stopped in the middle of the room, pulled out the papers, and threw them at him. He dropped his phone, staring at me in shock. "What's this?" he asked, annoyed. "Divorce papers," I said, my voice steady. "Sign them, you have 10 minutes to pack and leave." For a second, he looked truly surprised, like he couldn't believe what was happening. Then he laughed, that same mocking laugh I knew too well. "You're joking, right? Trying to get my attention?" He smirked, tossing the papers aside. I didn't react, I just stared at him. "No, Adam, this isn't a joke. Everything you thought you had, it's gone. The bank accounts, the car, even the money you hid. You have nothing left." His smile disappeared. "You're crazy, you can't do this to me." "Oh, but I already did," I said coldly, stepping closer. "You thought you could break me, hurt our daughter and get away with it? Big mistake." He tried to argue, but I shut him down each time. "You have 10 minutes to get out of my house. And yes, I'll tell Amber exactly what you did. She deserves the truth." The silence felt heavy. Adam finally understood, there was no way out of this. He started packing, his hands shaking with anger. But it didn't matter anymore. I had already won. I kept my eyes on Adam, memorizing the moment. When he reached the door, he hesitated, maybe hoping I'd stop him. I didn't. I simply closed the door behind him. The sound of the door clicking shut felt like something inside me shifting. For the first time in a long time, I felt free. But it wasn't a happy kind of freedom, it was bittersweet. Adam was gone. But this wasn't over. Isabella still had to face the consequences. And I knew exactly how to make that happen. The days after Adam left were quiet but tense. While he adjusted to being out of our lives, I turned my focus to Isabella. She still walked around like nothing had happened, acting like she was untouchable. That had to change. I couldn't just cut her off, I had to expose her. That's when the idea of the dinner came to me. A perfect way to gather the family under the pretense of making peace. I carefully spoke to each relative, pretending I was ready to move on. It was exactly the kind of lie Isabella wanted to believe. So, of course, she accepted the invitation without hesitation. On the night of the dinner, everything was set perfectly, like a stage before the final act. The house was spotless, the table arranged just right, and the atmosphere warm and welcoming. Isabella arrived early, dressed in something new, her usual smug smile on her face. She had no idea that by the end of the night, that smile would disappear. As the guests arrived, Isabella acted like she owned the place, laughing, chatting, soaking up the attention. I watched quietly from the corner, waiting for the perfect moment. When everyone was seated, I stood up with my wine glass in hand. "I'd like to say a few words," I said, my voice steady. Everyone turned to me, including Isabella, who looked pleased to be in the spotlight. "In recent months, I've been through a lot," I said, pausing for effect. "I was betrayed in ways I never expected, but now, it's time for the truth." Isabella shifted in her seat but didn't speak. I took out my phone and connected it to the TV. "I want you all to see something I've kept hidden until now," I said. I pressed play. The room went silent. On the screen, Isabella's voice was clear. She was bragging to Adam about how she had gained his trust, how she planned everything, and how weak she thought I was for not fighting back. She even laughed about it. The tension in the room was thick. When the video ended, I turned to Isabella. She looked pale, her eyes wide. "Do you have anything to say?" I asked coldly. She stood up, struggling for words. That was taken out of context," she stammered. "You don't understand." But it was too late. Murmurs spread through the room. My aunt shook her head. My cousins whispered to each other. One by one, people turned against her. "Enough lies," I said firmly. "Everyone saw what you did. This is who you really are, someone who would betray her own sister." Isabella bolted out of the house, but the damage was done. The truth was out. That night, as I cleared the table and watched the guests leave in silence, I felt something shift again. Justice was taking shape. Isabella would never hurt me again. Now, it was time to move forward. In the days after the dinner, Adam and Isabella's world fell apart like dominoes. I didn't interfere, but I watched everything unfold. Adam was the first to suffer. No money. No job. No way to start over. His so-called friends disappeared when they realized he had nothing left to offer. I watched as he sold off whatever he could, his motorcycle, his electronics, just to survive. But even that wasn't enough. One morning, Amber asked me, "Where's Dad?" I didn't lie. "He's trying to figure things out," I said. "But we need to move forward, just the two of us." She nodded, as if she understood more than I thought. Maybe she did. Maybe she already knew that a father's love shouldn't disappear when things get hard. Isabella's downfall happened fast and painfully. After the dinner, whatever respect she had left in the family was gone. My uncle, who had let her stay in one of his apartments, wasted no time kicking her out. "After what you did, Isabella, you can't stay here," he told her. I didn't have to do anything. She had no money, and Adam couldn't help her anymore. She tried turning to friends, but by then, everyone knew the truth. No one wanted to be involved with her. Watching Adam and Isabella face the consequences gave me a sense of justice, but it wasn't the victory I had imagined. There was no big moment of applause, no celebration. It was quiet, but it meant everything. They were finally paying for what they had done, and I could focus on what really mattered, Amber and me. I wasn't fully healed yet. It felt like knocking down a broken house, but I still had to clear the rubble before rebuilding. I had pieces to pick up, and I needed a purpose, something to help me look forward, not just feel relieved. That morning, as I cleaned up after breakfast and stared out at the cloudy sky, something felt different. It wasn't just about what I had lost or won. It was the first hint of something new, a second chance. And this time, I knew I wouldn't look back. The next step was mine alone to take. With Adam and Isabella gone, I could finally breathe. It wasn't just about them being out of my life, it was the realization that, for the first time in years, I was in control of my future. The mess they left behind wasn't easy to forget, but every day, I focused on what mattered, Amber and me. Once the divorce was final, I threw myself into work. I had always done well, but now I wanted to prove something, to myself, not to anyone else. I took extra courses, volunteered for projects that once scared me. And when the promotion came, it wasn't just a title. It was proof that I could rebuild from nothing. With my new salary, I made a decision I had been avoiding. I moved out of the house that held too many painful memories. Amber and I found a smaller, cozier apartment, one that was ours, with no ghosts of the past. We decorated together, picking colors and furniture, creating a space that felt like home. Amber thrived there. With me feeling stronger and happier, she did too. Her laughter filled our days again, and every time she hugged me before bed, I knew everything had been worth it. I would fight for her any day. But deep down, I realized something else. I wasn't just doing this for her. I was changing, too. Suddenly, I noticed the little things more, a walk in the park, a book I stayed up late reading, even the quiet moments. Life felt different, and so did I. People looked at me differently too. I wasn't just the woman who had been betrayed. I was someone who had survived, who had risen above it. The whispers still came, but they didn't touch me anymore. I had moved on. But there was still one last chapter to close. Adam and Isabella no longer had power over me, but sometimes, reminders of them still appeared, like shadows on a cloudy day. Not because I feared them, but because life had a way of bringing the past back when you least expected it. That night, as I finished reviewing a report for work, my phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. I opened the message, and my heart stopped for a second. "Can we talk?" It was from Adam. I stared at the screen for a moment, then turned off my phone and set it aside. He didn't deserve a response, neither did Isabella or any part of the past I was leaving behind. But that message gave me something unexpected, the feeling that I was finally free. That night, after Amber fell asleep, I stood by the window, looking out at the bright city lights. Life was full of possibilities, and for the first time in a long time, I allowed myself to dream. I was ready to move on, to close this chapter for good. A few weeks later, while I was at work, I got an unexpected call. It was from someone we both knew, someone who wasn't directly involved in our lives but had heard everything. "Sophia, you won't believe this," he said hesitantly. "Adam and Isabella are struggling. They're looking for you." A chill ran through me, not fear, but discomfort mixed with curiosity. "And why would I help them?" I asked, my voice calm. He sighed. "I don't know. I just thought you should be aware." I didn't respond and hung up. They were still trying to drag me back into their mess. But I refused to let them. Or so I thought. That same week, they showed up. It was a normal day. Amber was at school, and I was enjoying the quiet of my new home when the doorbell rang. Without thinking, I answered it. And there they were. Adam looked exhausted, his eyes sunken, his clothes messy. Isabella, though still trying to look put together, couldn't hide the fear in her eyes. For a moment, none of us spoke. Then Adam finally said, "Sophia, we need your help." I let out a small, cold smile. "Help? After everything you did, you think you can ask me for that?" My voice was steady, almost amused. "We have nowhere else to go," he said, desperation in his voice. "You don't understand how bad things have gotten." I crossed my arms and leaned against the doorframe. "No, Adam. You and Isabella are the ones who don't understand. You build your lives on lies. Now you have to deal with the consequences." Adam opened his mouth to argue, but I raised my hand. "I'm done with this. I'm done with you." And with that, I shut the door in their faces. I didn't feel anger or sadness. Just relief. That weekend, Amber and I took a trip I had been planning for months. She finally got to see the ocean, feel the sand between her toes, and play in the waves. As I watched her run along the shore, laughing and splashing, I sat on the sand, looking at the sunset. The golden and orange sky felt like the perfect symbol of my journey. It wasn't just the end of the day, it was the end of everything that had held me back. I thought about all I had lost but also all I had gained, strength, peace, and a fresh start. Adam and Isabella were nothing more than ghosts from a past that no longer mattered. They were stuck in the mess they created, while I had moved forward. Justice had finally come. As the sun dipped below the horizon, I whispered to myself. This is our new beginning. And no one will take it from us. Thank you for watching. Did you enjoy the story? If so, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel. It really helps us out and ensures you never miss another powerful story. Welcome to Karma's Revenge, where justice always finds its way. See you in the next one.